Danger Dolan. From villains that can melt into confectionery, to vigilantes whose only crime is that they're obese, we count 15 horribly awful comic book villains ever to find their way onto printed pages. Number 15. Codpiece. This supervillain's powers come from a misunderstanding he had with a girl. She calls him short, which he immediately assumes is a reference to his tiny wang. So naturally, he goes out and builds a giant pair of rocket cannon underpants with a spring-loaded boxing glove and a huge drill. He was inevitably defeated by the transsexual superhero Coagula, and if that doesn't scream social justice, then I have absolutely no idea what does. Number 14. Walrus, a man who claims to have all the mighty strength of a walrus. Unfortunately though, since those animals are typically slower and weaker than a human, he's saying he's not that great. Likewise, instead of breaking into banks or taking over the world, Walrus likes to attack inanimate objects like walls and lampposts. In one comic issue, Spider-Man flicks Walrus with his index finger once, and it knocks him unconscious. Number 13. Asbestos Lady. This is a criminal that dons fireproof clothing lined with asbestos to ward off fires. She'll carry around a flamethrower and light everything ablaze, then walk out unharmed. Well, as unharmed as you might be wearing a suit lined with asbestos. She actually constructed asbestos bullets to attack her longtime adversary, the Human Torch. But in the 90s, she contracted cancer because asbestos. Number 12. Ice cream. So you know those times when you're writing a comic book, you need a superpower, so you look around the kitchen and you realize, gee, I wonder what it would be like to turn into an ice cream. Well, meet Ice Cream, the man who can melt his body down into an ice cream substance to slip under doors and feed small children. Unbelievably, his saga only lasted one comic. How could that happen? Number 11. Sports Master, a man named Lawrence Kroc who uses sport-themed weapons like exploding baseballs, flying bases, rocket baseball bats, knockout basketballs, lacrosse snare nets, and exploding hockey pucks. He also wears sports clothes because apparently his obsession with sports wasn't already obvious. This is his power. This is what he does. That's like me throwing an exploding modem because I work on the internet. Number 10. Jin Genie. Here we go. A superhero that's so crappy she's basically a villain anyway. Jin was a member of X-Force with the ability to generate seismic waves at her enemies, which sounds fine in itself, except she needed to be totally hammered to do so. In fact, her waves would be precisely equal to her blood alcohol level. And since she was an alcoholic anyway, she gets so drunk that she couldn't control her waves and instead hurt or kill her teammates. Number 9. Mr. An interdimensional imp, enemy to Superman with a bizarre weakness that, even so, isn't as much a weakness but more of a dumb thing. The only thing that can banish this guy from our dimension is to make him say or write his own name backwards. The problem is though, his name is already a mess that saying it backwards is just as hard. So it's not a weakness, it's just a bizarre thing that tends to not happen yet works somehow. Number 8. Batmite, another interdimensional imp, but more of an annoyance than true enemy to Batman. He comes from a 5th dimension, too difficult to understand for us with our measly 3 dimensions. He tends to show up and idolize Batman, only disappearing when Batman tells him off, to which he cries as popularized by the animated series, I just want to help. Number 7. Calendar Man. This guy's a villain that only commits crimes on a given date, mainly holidays when it's more lucrative or simpler. The only issue is, when you know the date someone is planning a crime, wouldn't you, arrest him before that day and keep him there? Criminal intention maybe. Likewise, his costume is entirely composed of dates. So he is carrying around the time and dates of his every crime. So all you have to do is catch him and the evidence is pinned all over his body. And his costume is bright red. He could not be more obvious in a crowd. He might actually be the worst supervillain of all time, let alone this list. Number 6. Pink Pearl. You want to know what her superpower is? She's fat. She is evil because she is fat. Okay, that's it. She opens a male strip club, and now she's known as a master of evil. So take heed, ladies and gentlemen, if you get fat, you're going to be labeled a dangerous criminal. Number 5. Condiment King, a recurring villain on Batman who wields condiment cannons to spray food toppings on superheroes, mainly mustard and some ketchup. He's generally known for his Mr. Freeze-like cringe-worthy condiment puns like, I knew you'd catch up with me sooner or later, and let's see if you can cut the mustard. Wildly popular character, surprised he didn't get his own feature film / cooking documentary. Number 4. Ruby Thursday, a scientist who develops a high-tech organic computer, but instead of selling it or monetizing it in any way, no, she carves up her own head and plants it smack bang atop her neck. Now the red ball she calls a face can alter its shape so she can form tentacles, fire projectiles, and blasts of pure force. And as a bonus, if the sphere is removed from the body, she can still control it. Now this is just me, but I'd have just, left my head as it was and possibly used a tablet or something, because when I get a critical error, I wouldn't feel so great about not being alive anymore. Number 3. Polka Dot Man. So I feel mixed about this guy since the idea is both good and horrendous. On one hand, Polka Dot Man is covered in a suit made from polka dots that, when removed, transform into much larger objects like a weapon or even a flying saucer. But on the downside, the man is covered in a suit made from polka dots, and that is how he commits crimes. Inconspicuous. Number 2. Egg Foo. You know how people like to draw little faces on eggs? Let's make one of those a supervillain. Sure, that sounds like a ridiculously acceptable idea. So they did. An Egg Foo is a Chinese communist house-sized egg with a twirly mustache that can whip or strangle people because why not? He also has egg relatives and a robot twin called Dr. Yes. Number 1. Fisherman. Aquaman is known worldwide as a pretty unpopular, kind of a useless superhero. But what happens when you make an even lamer but evil version of him? Fisherman uses a high pressure suit, a fishing rod, and several lures. Yes, he's just an ordinary fisherman that happens to commit crimes. In one story, it's revealed he's actually an alien parasite that grafts itself onto an individual's head because otherwise nobody would care about his existence. That is it for this countdown. Have a good one! Sportsmaster.